Hello and welcome to the YYC Soccer Podcast. My name is Jason Kmet and my co-host is Scott Strasser. Hey, Scott.
Hey, Jason. Happy Sunday. How are you doing?
Good. Pretty good weekend overall, I'd say. Lots of non-soccer related running around.
Yeah, I had a super busy weekend myself. Spent a lot of time out and about, barely any time at home. And it was tough to get in my soccer fix this weekend, that's for sure, even though there was a lot of soccer on TV.
Yeah, I caught bits and pieces of things here and there, but yeah, I spent more time in a gym watching youth basketball. But yeah, it's there are many World Cup matches to watch right now. I did turn on the TV today and there was basically a game pretty much throughout the whole day.
Yeah, I did catch a decent amount of the Ecuador versus Ivory Coast game today. Kind of a surprising 1-0 win for the Ivory Coast. I thought Ecuador, they had such a great qualifier, barely conceded any goals. I've actually picked them for my dark horse, which is why I wanted to watch this game, and was kind of surprised. I thought they'd look better than they did. But anyway, we primarily focus on other soccer teams on this podcast, don't we, Jason?
Yeah, this is our weekend recap episode. We're going to talk about Calgary-based teams and their matches from this past weekend. We're going to talk about the Calgary Wild. They played the Halifax Tides out in Halifax. We'll talk about that. And no cavalry match, but we will talk about the Alberta Premier League, and we'll review the games that happened on Friday and preview the doubleheader coming up on Tuesday.
Yeah, so why don't we kick things off with that Calgary Wild versus Halifax game, which was out on the East Coast.
This is Maggie Doherty Howard, and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
So it was an early Saturday morning match out in Halifax, at least early morning from our time. I believe it was at 10:30. The Wild played the Tides at the Wanderers grounds. And another loss for the Wild and another goalless match again. Now they're 3 straight matches without scoring a goal.
Yeah, their last 3 matches have been 4-0, 4-0, and then this one was 2-0. So another disappointing result for the Wild against the team that was ahead of them in the standings. So coming into this, Halifax was in 5th and Calgary was in 6th. Halifax actually jumped a couple of spots up the table as a result of this game. But the Wild are still at the basement of the Northern Super League standings with just 1 point from their first 6 games.
I have to admit, I didn't watch this game in its entirety. I watched the extended highlight version, that 16 or 17 minute version of this match that the NSL put on YouTube. Halifax scored both their goals in the first half. Did you see the goal, Scott? What did you think of them?
Yeah, I actually, like you, watched the 17-minute highlight reel on YouTube, which omitted the red card, by the way, Jason. There was a red card in this game that wasn't included in that highlight reel.
They showed every single foul, it seems, but the what caused the red card mysteriously missing. And I noticed they did that in another match last year where there was a red card and they didn't include it in the extended highlights. So I don't know what's up.
And that was the red card for Halifax, which meant that for a decent chunk of this game, Calgary had a woman advantage, still didn't manage to capitalize. About those goals, the first one, it was a short corner and then laid back to Julia Benatti, and then from well outside the box. I don't know if this was a shot or a cross, but she hit it into the top corner from more of a crossing position than a shooting position. But Caitlin Talbert was off of her line and it sailed over her head and into the net.
And then on the second goal, a Wild player, I'm not sure, did you identify which Wild player it was? But a Wild player had given the ball away to Sarah Miller, and she knows what to do with it when she gets the ball like that.
Yeah, Sarah Miller is having a really great season, and whenever she plays against the Wild, she seems to really turn it on. And I can't remember which player it was who gave it away in midfield. It was whoever was on the left side of the Wild's midfield, but a poor giveaway and capitalized, and a decent finish from Miller, placing it in the bottom corner past Talbot just before the half.
Yeah, and then as soon as they came out at the beginning of the second half, it was the second yellow card for the Halifax player, and they went off, and the Wild had 42 minutes, down by 2, and still weren't able to score even one. Yeah,
really, really disappointing not to be able to at least get one goal. They had a couple of decent chances. I think there was one point where Grace Storty flashed the ball across the box, and I think Maya Jones almost got on the end of it, but Yeah, just another frustrating outing for the Wild. And as mentioned, the third game in a row without any goals. They only have 4 goals for in their first 6 games.
But Scott, is it really that frustrating? Like, did you see Sinead McSherry's post-match comments?
Yeah, she said there were a lot of positives to take from this game, and I'm not sure what exactly she meant by that because it's another game without any goals and another loss, right? So, I mean, I get what she's saying in the sense that the Wild did look better in this game than in the last 2, but those last 2 were 4-0 defeats, so that's not saying much. And I mean, I think it's quite obvious at this point that the Wild, the team isn't as strong as the other teams in this league. Like, they're not good enough to compete.
In the last 3 matches, they've been outscored 10-0.
Mm-hmm.
And just to make sure that if anyone's kind of wondering what we're talking about, here's the press release that the Calgary Wild released post-match. And here are the quotes that she said. Quote, "Overall, there was some really good progression. We had chances, but we couldn't capitalize on them. I didn't fault their effort today." And then it goes on a little bit further saying, "We will collect good from this game. Halifax is a strong team. I thought we could have deserved a draw. We didn't capitalize as much when they went down 10 women. But for me, I think we take the momentum from today with us."
Yeah,
So,
I
don't know.
Having not watched the whole game, I don't know if the game was as even as she makes it out to be, but based on the result, I mean, it's another loss and another game without a goal. They created 14 chances and had 5 shots on net, but you got to be scoring, right? Yeah, results-based business, exactly.
It's a results-based business. If all anyone really cares about at the end of the day are W's and L's and D's, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I guess a couple positives that you can glean from this is that Maggie Doherty-Howard did come back and play. She came on as a sub in the second half, so she got some minutes. And Janae Robertson and Anderson Williams also played. Michaela Moore got the start. So they're getting a bit healthier, but, at the end of the day, he didn't get them any points.
No. And again, against a team that was right directly above them in the standings. So not looking good. I don't want to say this season is a wash, Jason, because we do have transfer window coming up. They're still looking for a permanent head coach. And they are, as you mentioned, getting most of their injured players back in the lineup. So try not to dump on them too much this recap. But obviously, if these results keep happening every week, what are we going to talk about other than the fact that it's not going well, right?
Well, they're 7 points out of 5th place now. So
yeah, they're 7 points back of the team that is ahead of them, which would be AFC Toronto. Surprisingly, they're not having a good start.
Yeah, well, their next match is Sunday. They're still on the road. They're in Montreal. They're playing the Roses. So I guess that's where we're at for the moment. And, I really hope that we have more positive stuff to talk about in the next recap. But another tough one for the Wild.
And Jason, you did some analysis that I think we should touch on, which is a comparison between this season's Wild and last season's Halifax Tides, because Halifax last year was really off the pace and they were at the bottom of the standings, and the Wild are kind of replicating that form this time around, and you did some pretty detailed comparisons.
Yeah, well, I remember last year we kind of laughed at the Tides because they were so bad. And they just seemed to be so far below and so doing so poorly. We kind of joked about how poor their season was, but right now, when you look at the numbers, the 2026 Wild statistically does not compare favorably to the 2025 Halifax Tides.
No, they have the exact same record at this point of the season, as well as the same number of goals for. With 4, but Halifax actually had a much less leaky defense. They had conceded 12 goals in their first 6 games, whereas the Wild have now conceded 19. So a lot less airtight at the back. And the Wild actually have played most of their games at home, whereas at this point of the season in 2025, Halifax had only played 2 games at home and 4 games on the road.
Yeah. I got nothing else.
This is Canadian FIFA assistant referee Mike Barwigan, and this is the YYC Soccer Podcast.
All right, let's talk a little bit of Alberta Premier League. There were 3 doubleheaders on Friday evening in Calgary, and let's start with the women's division first, and we can start with the Villains who played Wild U23.
Yeah, and the Wild U23s had a much better outing than the senior team did. They won this 4-1 with Clara Monk, Jada Jones, Jordan McQueen, and Anna Howard flying for the Wild.
NA number 15, the captain, scored for Villains. I believe that's Jamie Verhun when I tried to do some research on it. But if you look at the official stat line, it's NA.
And then another note you put down here is that Izzy Monk came on as a sub for the Wild U23s.
The Izzy Monk watch continues. The transfer window opens on Monday.
Yeah, and as we've talked about, we fully expect that she'll be named as the Wild's latest signing.
Next match, Foothills versus BTB at Macron. A bit of a surprising result from my point of view. Foothills lost this match. BTB won 2-0.
Yeah, and I was wondering if Foothills was maybe missing some players for some reason.
I don't think so. Like when I looked at the lineup, there were a lot of the usual type players in their lineup. So I don't know. If this one strikes me as a bit of a mystery because, BTB are decent. Like they're not a bad club or anything, but I sort of had them sort of like maybe a notch below the Blizzard Foothills level. But hey, that's why you play the games, right?
Right. And then we had Rangers versus St. Albert. And on the women's side, this was a goalless draw.
Take a quick look at the standings here for the women's division. And my first question, Scott, is we know that Cavalry II cannot qualify for the Canadian Championship, but can the Wild U23 qualify for the Interprovincial Championship in August?
I mean, that's not a question I can answer, but it is a good question. I don't see why they wouldn't, because it's not like there's no women's equivalent of the Canadian Championship yet, is there?
Well, I think the argument is that on the men's side, that the Cavalry senior team is already competing to be in the Canadian Championship, and Cavalry II can't because essentially they're the same club. But in the Interprovincial Championship, there's no chance the Wild senior side could be in that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I said I don't see why they wouldn't be able to.
So the reason I brought that up is because at this point, the Wild are still in first place. They played 7 matches, which is more than second and third place teams, but they are 15 points on 7 matches.
Yeah, really strong start for them. 16 goals for, 10 goals against, so a +6 goal differential, 5 wins and 2 losses. So great work from the U23s.
But that being said, Blizzard have only played 5 games, so they have 2 games in hand, and their record is 4 wins and a draw for 13 points. So when you sort of look at the numbers there, if they continue on their positive run, they would leap and get those games in hand back. They would leapfrog over the Wild. And Foothills is in third place with 12 points on 6 matches.
Yeah, so a win from them in their next game could put them equal on points with Wild U23. And then the 2 Edmonton teams are in 4th and 5th, those being Edmonton BTB and St. Albert Impact. And then the other 3 Calgary teams are kind of carrying up the rear. Rangers in 6th, Villains in 7th, and then Callies in 8th with just the 3 points from their first 5 games.
Okay, let's move over to the men's division, and we'll get back to the Villains. They played the Wild on the women's side, and they played Cavalry II on the men's side. And hey, Villains picked up another point.
Yeah, this was a 1-1 draw. Cavalry II's goal came from Jax Wielden, while Villains' goal came from Massey Jabali. But that means Villains has picked up, is that their
fourth point
of the season? Yeah, so good result from them for sure.
Do you know much about this guy, Massey Djabi?
I do, Jason. I know that he's 30 years old and has a history of playing pro in France and Algeria.
He has a very long transfer mark page.
Interesting. And I'm just, I know that because you put it down here.
Yeah. I remember somebody telling me that he had a lot of experience. And so I just Googled him, and yeah, he's got a long career of playing in Algeria and France. Like, I don't think he was playing like League One or anything. I didn't check the levels of all those teams, but he's a guy he's had a significant career.
Yeah, I just pulled up his transfer mark, and I don't recognize any of these teams, but definitely.
Well, neither did I.
to 2015.
Yeah, I didn't recognize any of the team names either, but which made me think that, well, they're probably lower level teams that I'm not familiar with, but still, I thought it was kind of interesting.
Yeah, sometimes these players who played at a really high level back home and then they move to Calgary for other reasons and learn that they can play at a fairly decent amateur level, and they do. But in the past, I think that was more common with the Alberta Major Soccer League. I may be wrong, but maybe this is a case like that, where he's good enough to play in Alberta Premier League.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, a bit of a different story when you can, comparatively speaking to a lot of the young kids that are in the APL, but kind of interesting.
Other notes from this game, we did see some Cavalry senior squad call-ups, I guess you'd call them call-downs. But Mael Henry played, James McGlinchey played, and then Luke Ihama started.
And another surprising result at Macron, Foothills played BTB, and BTB won 3-1.
Yeah, which means their undefeated season is now over. Their lone goal came from Chen and Chanda. But yeah, that is the first time that Foothills has dropped points this season.
Yeah, I know BTB had a good side, but I was a bit surprised to see them come to Macron and get the 3 points. But and in the third and final men's matchup on Friday, Rangers versus St. Albert won 1-0. Yeah, so it was a pretty good weekend for visiting Edmonton teams in Calgary, actually.
Yeah, and a not good weekend for Calgary teams hosting, which is kind of interesting. Could be rainy on Tuesday night, Jason, but we do have a doubleheader in the Alberta Premier League. Callies will be taking on Blizzard over at Broadview. Men kick off at 5:30, and then the women play at 8 p.m. under the lights. Well, maybe the second half will be under the lights.
Thank you for listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast. You can have this podcast downloaded to your device as soon as it becomes available by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or other platforms. Check out our website at yyscsoccer.com, where you can look through our episode archive and find other options to listen, including our YouTube channel. We also have links there to buy Scott's book. It's called Here Come the Cavalry, and it's all about the history of pro soccer in Calgary. You can leave a question or comment in the Contact Us section of our website. You can also interact with us on social media, such as X, Instagram, or Blue Sky, where our username is at YYC Soccer 403. Thanks for listening.